All right, so I've got a little bit of a strange story to tell you that might be a little bit encouraging for you. Stick around and we'll go ahead and get into it. Hey there, it's Clay with modernlove.life, and I wanted to tell you this story because this is something that happened when I was in the process of getting back together with my ex for the second time. We broke up when I was studying abroad. I came back home. There was no longer a long distance thing between us. It was coming up on the end of the year. And at the time, her and all of her friends were under the age of 21, which in the United States is the legal age you have to be in order to buy alcohol. And I happened to be 21 years old. We were broken up. We weren't on particularly great terms, but she asked me to buy her and her friends some alcohol for New Year's. And by the way, you're also not invited to the party. Okay, so that seemed a little bit like a low thing to do. So I said, okay, well, enjoy your apple cider. I'll talk to you later. I don't feel comfortable buying alcohol for you. Happy New Year. And we hung up. That's how we really went into, I suppose, what you would call no contact. I know there's a lot of people out there that talk about no contact. Everyone out there has some sort of opinion on it. Everyone seems to say that you should always do it. I don't necessarily agree with that. But anyway, during this time, I was, in a certain sense, using silence as a positive way through all of this. Now, we weren't just doing no contact in like the typical sense of like, okay, just vanish off the face of the earth and the sheer mystery of what happened to you is going to get your ex to crawl over broken shards of glass to confess that they miss you or something like that. She knew very well that we were not going to be in contact. I was actually very heartbroken because, like up until this phone call conversation that was very surprising, very shocking, very, actually deflating for me. I actually really wanted to get back together with her, but after this conversation, it made me really question whether I wanted to do that or not. And I thought, okay, this is it. We're just never going to talk again. I'm just gonna have to face into this void of infinity and just not know how to figure out this relationship aspect of my life and do it the hard way. So I was preparing to actually do this. I thought that this was like the real deal here. This was like the final straw. And, looking back, I can say why she actually asked me to buy the alcohol. It was because she has very poor boundaries, at least she did back then. Her friends just wanted alcohol, and I was a practical means to get alcohol into the party, and so they just said, hey, why don't you ask your ex-boyfriend to get you some booze? As someone who had no boundaries, she just said yes. And that's what happened. What happened next was actually really interesting. So again, I went through the next, I think it must have been like 3 or 4 weeks, with no contact from her whatsoever. And during this time, I thought, okay, she's moved on. She clearly doesn't want to be with me. She's not made any effort to contact me. She's like, we're just done. I have to figure this out. I have to find out how to date. I have to find out how to pick myself up. I have to find out how to attract a woman, get a girlfriend and all that stuff. And by the way, once again, I had met my big ex back in high school, and, dating in the real world is not the same as dating in high school, right? Literally my one strategy for getting a girlfriend back in high school was to help a girl with her algebra until she fell in love with me. That is not a very good strategy in the real world. I can tell you that. I've never tried it, but I'm pretty certain it's not going to help you in the real world. What happened was for like 3 or 4 weeks after all of this, like we just didn't talk at all. Zero communication. I thought she had moved on. I thought she felt nothing for me. I thought that our relationship was nothing to her whatsoever. And then one day, I actually got this email from her out of the blue, and it totally surprised me and changed my opinion on everything. So before we go ahead and get into all of that and what happened next, I just wanted to let you know about this whole idea about using no contact or using silence in the appropriate way to make your ex miss you. The first thing is we want to make sure that we're showing up as a genuine and authentically good person ourselves. We want to make sure that we're showing up as the person that we most want to embody, right? I didn't want to be the kind of guy that's like, oh yeah, like you want some booze, I want to get with you. I'm gonna buy you some booze so maybe you'll fall in love with me, right? Oh yeah, like no, obviously that's a terrible setup. I wouldn't feel good about that. I don't think she would have felt good about that either. I don't think anyone would have felt good about that. That's like the main thing is like I actually stood up, I had a backbone, and I was the version of myself that I most wanted to be. And I was a reasonable adult through all of this. Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with this given our relationship situation, all that sort of stuff. I was a very reasonable person. I wasn't blaming her. I wasn't being particularly immature or anything like that. And so if you just show up as a decent and good person, that's the first step. The second step is to actually give them the gift of ownership for the reason why the two of you aren't in contact, okay? When you do this, you place the weight and burden of responsibility of this onto them. It's one thing for you to just say, my ex isn't talking to me and I don't know, I'm not sure why. Maybe they just moved on or something like that. That's one thing. But it's like, oh yeah, my ex isn't talking to me and I'm not talking to them because I was a total jerk and asked him to, buy booze for some underage kids. And he said no. And now I feel bad about that. And now I have to live with that. I have to live with the fact that I did something that's totally out of character for me. It's totally out of alignment with the person that I want to be. That is the gift of responsibility. That is the important element in all of this, is your ex now feels the gift of responsibility. My ex felt the gift of responsibility. She had to deal with the fact that, okay, she was out of character. She had to own this. If we weren't going to talk anymore, it's because of who she was being. She was being someone out of alignment. She was being someone out of integrity with what you wanted to be. And so this is very important, because as this starts to weigh on them, as this starts to sink in and weigh on them, they're going to potentially feel motivated to say, okay, this doesn't feel good anymore. Now I actually want to get in contact with you. Now I actually want to break this silence and get back in contact. And so this is where things actually start to get interesting. And so this is actually why she eventually messaged me on that one day a couple weeks later. Now again, going up to that point in time, I thought that we were just done for good. I thought that I would just never hear from her again. But during this entire time, during this entire several weeks, she had all of this emotional turmoil going on inside of her. She had all of this guilt, all of this regret, all of this oh snap, what did I do kind of stuff sinking in with her. And I didn't know about any of it. So if you're not in contact with your ex for one reason or other, it's easy for you to think that yeah, they've just moved on, they don't care about me. But they could potentially be going through their own emotional journey of dealing with their emotions, feeling guilty, thinking about reaching out to you, wanting to reach out to you, and all of that stuff. One day on a cold January day, I received that email from her, and basically she said, hey, I'm really tired of playing this game. I can't deal with this anymore, not knowing what you're up to. I just miss you so much. I just want to hear your voice. And that was when everything changed for the better between the two of us. Now I got back to her, we ended up talking later that day, and it was the beginning of actually our reconciliation, but it really shifted the dynamic between the two of us for the better. So anyway, what we've talked about in this video is what we call the one-way spikes strategy. Now we go into this and so many other things inside of our course called Effortless Connection. You can go ahead and find that in a link down below in the description or at our website at modernlove.life/EC. E is in effortless, C is in connection. If you are considering using silence as a way to get your ex to miss you, that's how I'd recommend doing it. Take care, and I'll talk to you in the next video.